The Story of Esther. Long ago, in the vast Persian Empire, ruled King Ahasuerus, also known as Xerxes, a powerful monarch who reigned over 127 provinces stretching from India to Ethiopia. His palace in Shushan, Susa, was a place of splendor, wealth, and royal majesty. One day, in the 3rd year of his reign, King Ahasuerus hosted a grand feast. For 180 days, he displayed his riches, power, and treasures to nobles, princes, and officials from across the empire. Afterward, he held a 7-day banquet in the palace gardens for all people in the city, from the highest noble to the lowest citizen. The palace was adorned with fine linen, marble pillars, golden couches, and drinks served in goblets of gold. Wine flowed freely, with each guest drinking as much as he pleased. Meanwhile, Queen Vashti, the king's wife, held her own banquet for the women in the palace. On the final day of the feast, the king, in high spirits from wine, commanded his 7 eunuchs to summon Queen Vashti wearing her royal crown so that all might behold her beauty. But Vashti refused. This bold act enraged the king. He consulted his wise men, who feared that Vashti's defiance would inspire rebellion among women across the empire. So, by royal decree, Vashti was deposed, never again allowed in the king's presence. A proclamation was sent to every province, in every language, declaring that each man was to be master of his own house. Afterward, when the king's anger cooled, he regretted Vashti's fate. His servants suggested a solution. Gather the most beautiful young virgins from every province, bring them to the harem in Shushan, give them beauty treatments, and from them choose a new queen. The king agreed. Among those brought was a young Jewish woman named Hadassah, also known as Esther. She was an orphan raised by her cousin Mordecai, who served at the king's gate. Esther was stunningly beautiful and full of grace. She quickly won favor with Hegai, the custodian of the women, who provided her with the best cosmetics, attendants, and special food. Before Esther left for the palace, Mordecai instructed her not to reveal her Jewish identity. She obeyed him faithfully, just as she always had. For 12 months, the young women underwent beauty treatments, 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with perfumes and cosmetics. When it was Esther's turn, she requested nothing except what Hegai advised, and everyone who saw her admired her. She was taken to King Ahasuerus in the royal palace. The king loved Esther more than all the other women, and she found favor in his eyes. He set a royal crown on her head and proclaimed her queen in place of Vashti. A great banquet was held in her honor. Not long after, Mordecai uncovered a conspiracy at the king's gate. 2 eunuchs, Bigthan and Teresh, plotted to assassinate the king. Mordecai informed Esther, who told the king in Mordecai's name. The matter was investigated, the conspirators were hanged, and the account was written in the royal chronicles, although Mordecai received no reward at the time. Enter Haman the Agagite. The king promoted Haman above all other officials, commanding that servants at the king's gate bow down to him. All did, except Mordecai, who refused to bow or pay him homage. When Haman saw Mordecai's defiance and learned he was a Jew, he was enraged. Not satisfied with punishing Mordecai alone, he plotted to destroy all Jews throughout the empire. Haman approached the king, claiming there was a people scattered across the provinces with different laws, disobedient to the king, and therefore unworthy to remain. He offered 10,000 talents of silver for the royal treasury if the king would approve their destruction. Without hesitation, the king removed his signet ring, gave it to Haman, and told him to do as he pleased. Letters were sent to every province, sealed with the king's ring, commanding the extermination of all Jews, young and old, men, women, and children, on the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar, and their goods to be plundered. The city of Shushan was thrown into confusion, but the king and Haman sat down to drink. When Mordecai learned of this decree, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and wept bitterly at the city gate. Across the empire, Jews fasted, mourned, and cried out in anguish. Esther's maids told her of Mordecai's grief. Distressed, she sent garments for him, but he refused. Through a messenger, Mordecai told Esther of Haman's plot and urged her to go before the king to plead for her people. Esther hesitated, reminding him that anyone who approached the king uninvited faced death unless the king extended his golden scepter. "It has been 30 days since the king called for me," she said. Mordecai's reply was sharp. "Do not think that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews. For if you remain silent, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" Esther resolved, "Go, gather all the Jews in Shushan, and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I will fast likewise. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish." On the 3rd day, Esther dressed in her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the palace. When the king saw her, he was pleased and extended his golden scepter. Esther approached and touched the tip. The king asked what she desired, even offering up to half his kingdom. Esther replied with wisdom. She invited the king and Haman to a banquet she had prepared. At the banquet, when asked again, she only invited them to a second banquet the following day. That night, Haman left joyfully, but his joy vanished when he saw Mordecai at the gate, still refusing to bow. Furious, he returned home, and at his wife Zoresh's suggestion, ordered a gallows 50 cubits high to be built, intending to ask the king the next morning to hang Mordecai. That same night, the king could not sleep. He ordered the royal chronicles to be read, and there it was recorded how Mordecai had saved his life by exposing the eunuch's plot. The king asked what honor Mordecai had received. His attendants replied, "Nothing." At that very moment, Haman entered the court to request Mordecai's execution. The king, before Haman could speak, asked him, "What should be done for the man the king delights to honor?" Thinking the king meant himself, Haman suggested a lavish display. Dress the man in royal robes, set him on the king's horse, crown him, and have a noble official lead him through the city, proclaiming his honor. The king commanded, "Excellent! Do this for Mordecai the Jew, who sits at the king's gate. Do not neglect a single detail." Crushed, Haman had no choice but to honor the very man he despised. He returned home humiliated, his wife and advisers ominously warning him that if Mordecai was of Jewish descent, he could not prevail. That very day, at Esther's second banquet, the king again asked her request. Esther finally revealed the truth. "If I have found favor in your sight, O king, let my life be spared, and my people.
for we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated." The king was shocked. "Who is he, and where is he who would dare presume in his heart to do this?" Esther pointed. "The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman." Haman trembled with terror. The king, enraged, left the banquet into the garden. Haman fell upon Esther's couch to beg for his life. The king returned and cried, "Will he even assault the queen in my presence, in my own house?" At that moment, Haman's fate was sealed. One eunuch spoke up, "Behold, the gallows Haman built for Mordecai stands at his house." The king ordered, "Hang him on it." And Haman was executed on the very gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. The king gave Haman's estate to Esther, and Esther appointed Mordecai over it. Esther revealed to the king that Mordecai was her cousin, and the king gave him the signet ring taken from Haman. But the decree against the Jews still remained, for Persian law could not be revoked. Esther fell at the king's feet, weeping, and begged him to stop Haman's evil plan. The king permitted Mordecai to write a new decree in his name. Letters were sent to every province, allowing the Jews to gather, defend themselves, and destroy anyone who sought their harm on the appointed day. On the 13th of Adar, when their enemies hoped to overpower them, the opposite occurred. The Jews triumphed. They struck down their attackers, including Haman's 10 sons, who were hanged on the gallows. In Shushan alone, 500 men were slain. Across the provinces, 75,000 of their enemies perished, though the Jews did not seize plunder. The next day, the Jews in Shushan rested and celebrated with feasting and gladness. This victory became the foundation of the Feast of Purim, named for the poor, or lot, that Haman had cast to determine the day of their destruction. Mordecai and Esther established Purim as an annual celebration for generations to come, a time of joy, feasting, sharing food with one another, and giving gifts to the poor. Mordecai's fame grew, and he became second in command to King Ahasuerus, seeking the good of his people and speaking peace to all his descendants. And so the Jewish people were delivered by God's unseen hand through the courage of a young woman who risked everything, Queen Esther.